Welcome back, friends. Welcome back to another edition of the Geneva Business Insider. And for longtime viewers of the Corporate Report, you'll remember that this is our monthly series where we talk to our good friend David L. Smith of the Geneva Business Insider, who, of course, is there in Geneva providing us insights on social and economic and geopolitical issues, not only in Europe, but all around the globe. However, you will have noticed that it's been several months since our last conversation. In fact, we're just on the edge of May here in 2014, and this is our first conversation of the year. And David, you will be pleased to know that you are back by popular demand. I've had several emails wondering where you were, and in fact, a few just this week trying to figure out what happened to the Geneva Business Insider. So here we are. We're back. We're covering things once again. Thank you again for your time. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks to my admirers for motivating me to come back as well after my period of hibernation.
Well, it's good to know that people out there are keeping track of the Geneva Business Insider blog, and hopefully you'll be updating it a little bit more, because I think people are looking forward to your posts. But
I'll be a good boy.
Well, we'll motivate you, don't worry. All right, well, let's roll up our sleeves and get to work. There's a lot going on to talk about in the world, but of course, one of the big events happening right now is happening not too far from where you are, at least a lot closer to you than me, and that's in Eastern Europe, where, of course, the Ukrainian crisis continues to brew and percolate, and I won't attempt to summarize the current situation because it really is fluid. It is changing moment by moment, and by the time we record this and get it posted and people listen to it, it will already be yesterday's news. So rather than concentrating on the latest developments, let's just talk about the Ukrainian crisis, how it's unfolding and how it's affecting Europe and Russia, and perhaps most importantly, the excluded middle, the Ukrainians themselves, which is, interestingly enough, an angle that not a lot of people talk about when they're talking about this crisis. Tell us from your perspective about what's really happening here and the historical context that's led us to this.
Well, I think the fairest thing is to start with the history, because conveniently, if you look at the versions given by the American Secretary of State, Mr. Kerry, history started when there was a coup in the country, and nothing that happened before that has any relevance whatsoever. Now, I mean, all of the things that we're witnessing at the moment is a kind of re-engineering of events. Ukraine is what? I mean, it's like the Midwest of America. It's in the 19th century, probably. You've got vast amounts of wheat fields and crops and all the rest of it. It's kind of sandwiched between superpowers, and it, as so often happens, if you're sandwiched between superpowers, you are the whipping boy of anyone who wants to come along and have a surrogate war using you as a mechanism. So if you take the two sides of the country, the western part of the Ukraine, yes, it leans towards Europe, but it is a fairly poor part. On the eastern side, you have the Russian side and the Russian borders, where of course the story about Crimea having been annexed is portrayed in scandalously different ways by two powers whose vested interests are what comes out of the descriptions. But eastern Ukraine is basically a kind of Rust Belt area where they have some engineering businesses. They're manufacturing for things like the Russian railway. There are coal mines, iron and steel works and things like that. But nothing of a sophisticated nature, and only the kind of country that could survive in a semi-third world environment.